It's been described as one of the 7 wonders of the natural world, and it's no wonder because the Serengeti migration is one of the greatest mammal migrations on Earth. Each year, over 2 million animals migrate between the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania to the south and the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya to the north. They travel in a clockwise direction, covering approximately 2,000 kilometres. When the rain dries up sometime around May, when many of the offspring have been born, it's time to head north. Then in late October, a southward migration begins. There's no exact start or finish date. For example, in 2015, migration north began 3 months earlier than in most previous years due to a shorter rainy season. The migration is best understood as a continuous phenomena that happens all year round in an endless search for food and water. If there is any schedule, it is dictated by the weather, since this affects both food and water supply. The only thing that is certain in this endless migration are that life and death will happen along the way, as around 400,000 Thompson's gazelles, 200,000 zebra and 1.5 million blue wildebeests search continually for greener pastures. It is the sheer numbers of the wildebeest that has gained the most attention. The wildebeest can weigh up to 600 pounds, 270 kilos, and live for 20 years. The name wildebeest is Afrikaans for wild cattle or wild beast. It gets its name due to its large head, beard and curved horns. It's also known as the white-bearded wildebeest, the common wildebeest and the brindled gnu. The blue wildebeest is a large antelope and one of 2 species of wildebeest, the other being the black wildebeest. The wildebeest is considered by some scientists to be a keystone species due to the large beneficiary impact it has on the ecosystem in which it lives, in particular its migratory habits. During each year's migration, around 200,000 wildebeest and zebra die from disease, starvation and exhaustion. This does not count death from predators, which are always lurking close by, waiting to single out the weak, the young and those who have strayed from the herd. In the open plains, the chief predators are the lion, leopard, cheetah, hyena and wild dog. But to get to the greener pastures in the north, wildebeest must also cross raging rivers and avoid the jaws of waiting crocodiles. Around 500,000 calves are born every year. A short mating season occurs somewhere between May and July, and offspring are usually born in the south between January to March. About 80% of these are born within a short 2 to 3 week period at the beginning of the rainy season. The calves are walking in a few minutes and in about 2 days can run as fast as their mothers. When they are a little older, they will even be able to outrun a lion. But first, there are other challenges they must face. Calves need to be able to keep up with the herd when it moves. But because herds can panic often, it can result in young wildebeests being easily separated from their mothers. In such circumstances, it is not likely that the baby wildebeest would find its mother again, with such big herd numbers. Worse still, calves are not adopted by other wildebeest mothers, even if those mothers have lost their own young. One of the unavoidable dangers mentioned before which wildebeest must face is river crossings, especially at the northern part of their migration in Kenya. Here they must cross the crocodile-infested Mara River. When the wildebeests arrive at the Mara River, they don't always cross straight away. Maybe it's because they know the fearsome dangers that await them, and that there is no guarantee they will make it to the other side. So their numbers can swell quite considerably into the tens of thousands, and it can be days before a crossing begins. Eventually, they take the plunge, and depending on the place of entry, it can be a suicidal plunge down a steep embankment into raging waters below, where hundreds lose their lives, injuring or killing themselves in the fall, or being swept away and drowned later. Often though, they would choose a path less treacherous and with an easy entry and shallow waters, followed with an exit that is free from vegetation in which predators like to hide. But vegetation or not, the crocodile will still be there, waiting for its next meal. Perhaps this is why the crossings often appear as panicked as the wildebeest charge to safety on the other side. The crocodile is a fearsome predator. Large crocs have grown to over 20 feet long, lived over 100 years and weighed up to a ton. Their bite has been measured as the most powerful on the planet. If you bite into a juicy steak, your bite probably won't go much higher than 150 to 200 pounds per square inch. Hyenas, lions and tigers generate 1,000 pounds per square inch. The crocodile is the clear winner with up to 3,700 pounds per square inch. Yet despite such a fearsome bite, lining up at the Crocodile Cafe on the Mara River, you would expect that the crocodile would not stand much of a chance against those stampeding hooves. However, most of its body and head is covered by a permanent armour of bony plates. It does not seem to be bothered about being trampled on, which seems to be the deliberate intention of some of the larger wildebeest. Unlike the wildebeest, the crocodile is not in a hurry. This is possible for three reasons. First of all, it can strike with lightning speed. Secondly, if it misses one wildebeest, there are still thousands more streaming into the river. And third, it can survive even up to a year without a meal. The crocodile is known as a meat eater and can consume up to half its weight in one meal. And as its stomach is the most acidic of all vertebrates, it can consume bones, horns, hooves or shells. Recent studies, however, have shown that there are times when the crocodile survives as a vegetarian, living on plant life around riverbanks. So, like the panda, which has sharp teeth but doesn't eat meat, the crocodile also can survive on a vegetarian diet. And there are times when it may have to. Some days, wildebeest just don't seem to be on the menu. If a wildebeest can keep its footing, it stands a chance. And sometimes, when all chances seem to have disappeared, the wildebeest makes an incredible escape from a seemingly impossible situation. Now, as spectacular as it is watching thousands of wildebeest charging into the river, likewise it is quite a spectacle watching them trying to get out of the other side. In some cases, it appears as if some of them look for the most difficult way. There does not seem to be a lot of forward planning. But eventually, after various setbacks, they find their way out to greener pastures on the other side. With the river behind them, it's time to think of other things. Two wildebeest engage in a short-lived mock fight. Males don't mate until around 4 years old. Mating season begins shortly after the rainy season, around May to June. During this time, males defend territories that they've established, but fights seldom result in injury or death. It's been rumoured that the females, who far outnumber the eligible males, do the choosing. In the Great Serengeti Migration, the wildebeest dominates the landscape. Despite the many obstacles and dangers they face along the way, their numbers are strong, about 6 times that of 1960, where they were counted to be around 250,000. From sunrise to sunset, they were always ready to make their move and migrate to greener pastures. In their travels, they make a profound and essential contribution to the Serengeti ecosystem as keystone species. They also leave a lasting impression on all who have had the privilege of witnessing one of the 7 wonders of the natural world, the Great Serengeti Migration.